Like I mentioned, today in the modern era, with modern science throwing up a lot more facts and a lot more contrivances or devices that help us find out what happened all those thousands of years back, there is a lot of interesting information that is emerging about the Ramayana and the fact that all of what has been stated in the book could very well be true. So let's look at some of the facts which talk about the Ram Setu specifically and how the Ram Setu or the Nal Setu may have been a man-made bridge that definitely existed all those thousands of years back or was built all those thousands of years back. Point number one, let's talk about the different books or the different epics that mention this other than the Ramayana. One is the Skanda Puran. Now the Skanda Puran is probably about 2000 years, if not older than that, or at least that is when the first written record of it was found. It very clearly mentions that the Ram Setu, which is built between the southern tip of India and the island of Lanka, is one of the pilgrimage sites that every devout Hindu should visit. Now the fact that they are mentioning in a book that is so old means that the bridge was constructed at least prior to that. Secondly, there was a famous Arab traveler Al-Biruni who visited India in the 14th or 15th century CE. Now Al-Biruni very clearly mentions in his book that there is a bridge that people walk across between the southern tip of India and Lanka, which he calls Adam's Bridge, or the British today called, or when the British invaded India, they called it Adam's Bridge, where according to Al-Biruni, the bridge was built by Adam, who was the first man and considered a prophet. The British considered him to be Adam, again the first man, and say that he possibly built this bridge. Now, they may have given their own versions of who built the bridge, but the fact remains that everyone was convinced that this is a bridge built by people and it is not a natural formation. A few years back, NASA, which is the American Space Agency, took a series of photographs of the Park Strait, which is the waters separating India and Lanka, or India and Sri Lanka of today. And these photographs were then stitched together. When they were stitched together to give us one clear unified image, it distinctly shows a series of rocks or an uninterrupted line of rocks connecting the two tips of Sri Lanka and India. Now this does not definitively say that the rocks were either man-made or a natural formation, but what they do clearly show is that a bridge exists. Dr. Badri Narayan, who was an Indian scientist, was tasked in the mid-2000s to conduct research at that point in time and find out if this is a natural formation. The reason he was given this task was that the Indian government of that day wanted to dredge the oceans, which means they wanted to break this natural formation or this man-made bridge so that ships could easily pass through and it would improve trade ties and bring down the time that it takes for goods to reach India. Obviously, the people of India, a lot of them were at loggerheads against this decision. They didn't want the Ram Setu to be broken because it's a very important heritage site, it's a relic, it's almost a holy place for a lot of people. So, Dr. Badri Narayan was tasked to find out if this is a natural formation or if this is a man-made structure. He conducted several tests, but there were 3 or 4 facts that emerged from these tests which very clearly point to the fact that this bridge is an artificial construction and not a natural formation. The first thing that he found was that the bridge, a large part of which is today submerged in under 14 or 15 feet of water, has stone on top on a bed of sand, and then there are corals which are again on a bed of rocks. Now, prima facie, there is nothing strange about this except for the fact that corals never grow on sand. Corals always grow on hard rock. The fact that these corals are on sand means that that sand that we see today must have been rocks thousands of years back, which is eroded and the corals are still there. And the bedrock on which this sand is, the rock structure which is there, is on another layer of rocks. The first layer or the upper layer of rocks typically should be newer than the older layer. That is what conventional wisdom suggests. But when the upper layer of rocks was carbon tested, it was found that there are 2 things that are emerging. One, these are not rocks which are found in oceans, these are actually riverine rocks or rocks which are found in or brought down by rivers. Which means whoever constructed that bridge must have traveled to far off places where rivers flow and where rocks are flowing down with those rivers, and those rocks were collected to build this bridge. The second fact that emerged was that the rocks on top were 7,000 years old, whereas the rocks under those were 4,000 years old. Now, it's rather difficult or nearly impossible that the rock on top will be older than the rock below. Logic suggests that the rock below will be older than the rock on top. That means the rocks on top, which are older, were brought from somewhere and placed on top, which is a clear indication that somebody took the effort of bringing those rocks, placing them there, and constructing a bridge. So all of these facts and several others very clearly point out that it is more than likely the Ram Setu or the Nal Setu is actually a bridge constructed by Lord Ram's army and not a natural formation. Of course, more research has to be carried out, more studies have to be carried out for us to be 100% sure of it. But while we're waiting for those to come out, the indications very clearly point that this is a man-made structure and actually a feat of marvelous engineering, probably 5 or 9 or 10 or 15,000 years back, where Lord Ram's army constructed this bridge, enabling them to cross over to Lanka. One last fact, till the 15th century CE, the bridge actually existed, and there are written records that people walked across from India to Lanka and vice versa, till the bridge got submerged with the rising ocean levels, which we are even seeing today as we speak with climate change. The ocean levels are rising and they will continue to rise for the foreseeable future. So like I said, all these facts very clearly indicate that this is more likely than not a bridge that was constructed by Lord Ram's army and not a natural formation.